Okay, Muzan as a villain is losing credibility. I can't keep having you screw-ups make him look like Michael Jackson. Okay boss, we'll do better. He needs to be menacing. He's a demon for crying out loud. Make him scary. Don't worry boss, we got it. No more funny games. We're getting to the finale now. Things are getting serious. Can I trust you? Yes. In fact, we have it ready for you right now. Oh, that's great. Let's have a look at it. Wow, this looks really great so far. You're fired. Why is this still going on? What I just saw was not a show. It was a trailer. An 8-episode trailer just to tease you for what's to come for the next season. Apart from the last episode, this was the most pointless season of Demon Slayer. What did we learn from this that we don't already know? Yeah, okay, you got me there. We didn't know about the Stone Hashira's past. Yeah, that's true, but we do now. And now our lives have changed for the better knowing the backstory of the Stone Hashira. One of the dumbest and unrealistic stories I've heard. He distrusts children because one of them threw him in prison. And he's blind, it turns out. So what stands out between his backstory and the other Demon Slayers is that apart from everyone he loved was killed by a demon, he was blind. That was the big reveal. Also, he is absurdly humongous. Something that Demon Slayer has been good at in terms of storytelling are its backstories. The emotional depth they draw from these moments to add weight and investment to the present timeline. Their fate and journey feels justified. You want them to succeed based on the hardships they have endured. But in this arc, it's all about character development and build-up. But you can agree that's been happening in every season up until now. Instead, I was left incredibly frustrated by the lack of urgency that this season gave us. There was literally nothing new explored of any considerable worth. I mean, did they really expect us to get excited for a training arc? Who gives a shit about the training? Who cares about watching them train? What did it do for the story? I know this is called the Hashira training arc, but I didn't expect the whole thing to be a literal training session. And it was just so boring. Every episode was the same. Oh, you think the last upper rank was the hardest? Well, it's only going to get harder from here on out. The training is going to be more intense than ever. Oh, you just got through training from the last Hashira? Well, guess what? Training just got a whole lot harder. Just you wait, this training is going to be more intense than you ever imagined. You see what I'm getting at? We're finding ourselves in the same situation, going round and round in circles, and it wasn't even hard. He got through it without a scratch, and he did it all with that annoying smile on his face like it was nothing. The training with the Wind Hashira was the only one that felt gripping because of the conflict between him and his younger brother Genya. The fighting had a bit more weight and intrigue, and was a subplot that offered development and growth for the two brothers. Genya's backstory from the Swordsmith arc was also my favourite part of that season, so I liked that it further progressed their story. And by the way, I was not a fan of the Swordsmith arc. The upper ranked demons sucked, they were weaker and way less interesting compared to Daki and Gyotaro. And we had to spend time with two of the worst Hashira. I mean, I found Mitsuru really annoying and I really wish Muichiro would missed himself out of this story. He has a twin and he lost his memory. That was the dumbest backstory of the whole show. The Hashira training arc in Demon Slayer has been generally received with a mixed bag of opinions among fans. If we look at this from a positive angle and then turn it into something negative, you can understand how frustrated I am with this season. This arc supposedly provides significant development for both the main characters and the Hashira. It gives us a chance to appreciate the deeper insights into the personalities, abilities, and backstories of the Hashira. Well, we only got to see the backstory of one Hashira. We don't know anything about the snake guy, he still remains a mystery, and he's too similar to the Wind Hashira in the sense that he hates Tanjiro and is needlessly violent. I don't feel this arc did anything for our three-dimensional and highly complex main character Tanjiro. I know it's just a shonen, but my god, this guy just isn't the least bit interesting. What is the point of him being completely good and not make a single mistake? He's basically a saint. He's Jesus, fighting the Romans disguised as demons. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of his goody two-shoes antic. There's nothing wrong with him being flawed. That's what makes you a more interesting character. Someone who makes mistakes and does things for selfish reasons are human traits that we as an audience can relate to. I mean, all I'm asking for is to have Tanjiro to show a side to him that's bold and edgy. Be less perfect and more human. You know, be more vulnerable, more anxious, do the wrong thing for once. Be more like Zenith's, no, scratch that. Don't be anything like him. Be more like Inosuke. Nope, that's also a bad example. You know, there's not really many characters here that I can say are genuinely well written characters. Just because their whole family died and they've had it tough doesn't always mean they're great characters. You have to have some energy about you, some charisma. Like Tengen. The man is charming, slick, has a great sense of humor, but also has a side to him that's poignant, tragic, and empathetic. And Rengoku was also a character who possessed a great energy that livened up the scene. Man, they really sidelined the two best Hashira. Instead, we gotta watch them mist and love Hashira in battle. Here's another positive angle that I will now turn into negative. This arc showcases the rigorous training of the Hashira and the growth of the main characters Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke. This progression is seen as crucial for their preparation for the upcoming battles. Okay, I get that they have to prepare for what's to come, but could it not have been condensed into one episode rather than 8? Zenitsu was annoying as hell. There are times you think he might be changing and then reverts back to this child who has no right to be a demon slayer. And then you have Inosuke, and I don't know what to say about him other than I only slightly prefer him over Zenitsu. And that's not a compliment, that is an insult. This might be the worst trio to follow in terms of main characters. They didn't grow in this arc, Zenitsu just became silent by the end. Is that really development? We know he has this bipolar disorder. The training would have been good if this was season 1. We are at a point now where training should not be implemented into the narrative unless it's essential. And do you tell me, was there anything this season made you think that the training was worth your time as an audience member? Did we watch Aragon and Legolas train before fighting the orcs in Return of the King? No, they got straight to business, and that's what they should have done for the Demon Slayer anime. The 8th episode was the only part worth watching. Honestly, if I ever rewatch this whole show, I am skipping those first 7 episodes. And by the way, what's with all these kids having insanely jacked bodies? It just looks wrong. This season had a chance to expand on the interactions between the main characters and the Hashira. These interactions helped build camaraderie and understanding, adding depth to the characters and the relationships. But it actually did the opposite, it didn't really add any depth. And to be honest, these interactions weren't that memorable. The Wind Hashira made things interesting, but it was temporary. There was just no conflict in this arc. They tried to explore characters in more depth, but it was dull. The whole episode where Tanjiro tries to open up to Tomioka was so forgetful. I mean, it was cool we got to know he was friends with Sabito and feels like he's not worthy of being a Hashira, but this turmoil could have been integrated during a battle with demons, and the real problem I had was how this was all seemingly resolved after 1 episode. Tomioka no longer has that feeling of isolation and alienation. He doesn't have imposter syndrome anymore. Everything has been resolved all thanks to Saint Tanjiro. Due to the lack of action in this arc, I found the pacing extremely slow and lackluster. The focus on training and character interactions was so repetitive and recycled to the point where the dialogue just wasn't bringing out the emotional side. We have to accept that Demon Slayer is the type of show where action speaks louder than words. I don't think I can say that Tanjiro really learned anything from this training arc. He is the main character after all. What did he gain from all of this? He will only learn from fighting demons in the field. I also felt that the humor was really lacking. I've never really been a fan of the comedy in Demon Slayer. Apart from Tengen and Rengoku's charisma, the show really lacked that wit and charm you would see in other shonen. Unless of course you enjoy watching Zenitsu cry and shout at the top of his lungs until your ears bleed out. Unlike other arcs, the Hashira training arc lacks significant battles or confrontations with demons. In short, there are no stakes, and when there are no stakes, the whole affair is just a dull affair. While the Hashira training arc is the antagonist of what Demon Slayer represents, exciting action-packed animation that thrills and delights in every frame, I cannot come to appreciate this sorry attempt of character development and world building. Although I understand the importance in preparing the characters for the intense challenges that they will face in future arcs, it is executed with far less intrigue. I never thought that the overall narrative of Demon Slayer was that great to begin with. It was relying heavily on the brilliant action and music. This is when the show was at its best. It was very emotional. Without these elements, you get something tame like the Hashira training arc. My favourite aspects of the entire season was the lore regarding the Ubuyashiki family and Muzan Kibutsuji. 1,000 years of history in one never-ending battle. The showdown between Kagaya and Muzan was by far the most gripping scene of the arc. I wish they had explored the past of the Ubuyashiki lineage and their tragic curse inflicted on them. It also gave us a chance to see Muzan in a vulnerable state for once. For that one scene, he was no longer Michael Jackson. He felt like a villain to be reckoned with, someone who felt threatened and that subsequently made him more powerful. The entire scene was like the start of an epic western. There was a slow, foreboding tension that built up as the conversation progressed. You were just waiting for something bad to happen. You knew it was going to. And it had me on the edge of my seat. This whole sequence made me think how different the story would be if we focused solely on the Ubuyashiki family's long and arduous battle against Muzan. Maybe we do get a glimpse of the origin story in the next season, but I would have preferred they told it in this arc because everything else was just dull and more of the same. I think the big takeaway from this, if there is anything, is that this arc would have been better if it was just a movie. There is so much that could have been cut out. The training stuff was terrible, I've established that quite clearly. I really think episode 8 would have worked fine as a standalone 1 hour special. You could probably add the Stone Hashira's past in the middle, which would make complete sense since he decapitated Muzan. Demon Slayer is not Attack on Titan, the story isn't anywhere near as interesting or complex. The themes being explored in Demon Slayer are quite straightforward, but they never go in depth. The theme of loss, poverty, and kindness are key in this show, and they demonstrate lessons of morality and the way we treat people. I just think this aspect of the show is constantly weighed down by the tone of the show. The campy humor that you see through Zenitsu and Mitsuri makes you think you're watching something different. And then you have the repetitive nature of Tanjiro defeating a highly ranked demon and not really allowing him to grow as a character. These elements cancel out the mature themes and often feel sidelined by generic quests and childish humor. The Hashira training arc in Demon Slayer missed the mark by focusing excessively on mundane training sequences and failing to deliver the emotional and narrative depth expected from the series. Character development was minimal, with Tanjiro remaining a flawless protagonist and Zenitsu and Inosuke showing little growth. The few bright spots such as the lore of the Ubuyashiki family and Muzan's vulnerability highlighted the potential for a more compelling story that was ultimately overshadowed by their arc's flaws. Demon Slayer thrives on its action-packed sequences and emotional storytelling, but this season felt like an extended teaser. I still have hope that the final arcs will return to the series' strengths, delivering the excitement and depth that I have come to love.